I must go through this on my own. You'll have to let me feel my pain before I face the world again. One day I hope the pain will fly and I'll be free, free to laugh, free to love, free to live, and free to see the joy, see the light that life can bring if we allow. But till then, I must be alone for now. There is a darkness in my soul. I may look young, but I feel old. My thoughts are spinning me around. I feel my tears as they rush down. There is a hope the tears will end, and I will be a girl full of love, who can laugh and who can see the joy, see the light that life can bring if we allow. But till then, I must be alone for now. You know it's getting rather bad. I'm feeling something more than sad. I think I'll have to say goodbye. Please, please don't miss me when I die. There is a hope, but not on earth, no, not for me. Maybe heaven holds a place where I can laugh and I can see the joy, see the light I never felt when I could breathe. Maybe there I will finally be free, be me. Thanks. Good evening. Can you hear this? Okay. My name is Nancy Farber, and as Melissa said, I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Counseling and Student Development. I'm also a psychologist. I'm also a bit of a musician. But most of all, I am a human being, as are all of you out here tonight. And I'm here to talk tonight about the topic of suicidology. The title of my lecture or talk is Suicidology, Let's Talk About It. Let's talk about it. And if you hear nothing else tonight, I hope that you will hear those 4 words. Let's talk about it. Because we don't really talk about it, do we? I mean, we all have pain, we all have joy, we all have hope, we all have more pain. Some of us try to drink our pain or smoke our pain or yell at our pain or cut our pain or forget our pain or repress our pain. So many ways we try to kill our pain. And we get glimpses of other people's pain. We hear it in songs and music, through poetry, through writing, through movies. There's a line from the movie Shadowlands where Anthony Hopkins, as C.S. Lewis, says, "We read to know that we're not alone. We listen to music to know that we're not alone. We write to know that we're not alone. And yet so often we feel alone." Why is that? Perhaps because maybe we don't want to talk about our pain. In both real life and popular culture, we often hear the phrase, "ruled out suicide," "ruled out suicide." Or we try to portray a suicide as an accident. People would prefer to hear, "he or she died of natural causes." Why is that? Why is suicide so threatening to all of us who feel pain? Perhaps because at any time, any one of us could be a candidate for suicide. I mean, we're all trying to kill our pain, aren't we? Think about it. Suicide, if you look at the statistics, is between the 8th and 11th leading cause of death overall in our society. It's the 3rd leading cause of death among people ages 15 to 24. And it's the 2nd leading cause of death among college-age students. That's most of you, right? So heck, if so many people actually try to kill themselves, you can imagine how many of us at least think about it. I mean, come on, we all think about it, right? Right? Let me tell you about a little experiment that I did last year. And luckily, this was before the Institutional Review Board was in place. Otherwise, I probably would have gotten in trouble for this. But I did a little experiment with a class of mine. I had them close their eyes, and I asked them to raise their hand if they'd ever had a suicidal thought. And by suicidal thought, I don't mean an intention or that you actually planned on going through with it, but you thought about it. You thought about it. Maybe you just thought, gosh, it would be better if I was never here, or I wonder what it would be like if I were dead, but you thought about it. You thought about it. Well, first of all, I raised my hand. Hello, yes, your professor's had a suicidal thought. What do you know? And what do you think happened? Well, all but a couple of students raised their hands. Over 90% of my class raised their hands. So what does that tell you? Just the past couple of weeks, I've been walking around town, and as some of my friends know, ad nauseum, talking about this presentation and getting excited about it, and just talking with people everywhere about the topic of suicide. And I noticed that whenever I brought it up to people, and the idea of that we all have suicidal thoughts, people were hesitant at first, but as soon as I talked about how normal it is, not one person denied having had a suicidal thought. So I would like to make the case that rather than thinking of suicidal thoughts as something that's abnormal, that it's actually normal. And I would go as far to say that if you've never had a suicidal thought, you're probably abnormal, that we all think about it. So if we all think about suicide, or at least most of us, I don't know for sure, but if suicide is so common, the thought, and we all think about it, why is it so hard for us to talk about it? Anyone have any ideas? And anyone want to raise their hand and maybe share, why do you think it's so hard for us to talk about it? We have someone right back there, Miss Colleen. This is Miss Colleen, my wonderful graduate assistant and friend. Meg, why is it so hard for us to talk about it?
I think people don't talk about it because to commit suicide is taboo. Therefore, talking about suicidal thoughts would kind of indicate that taboo that we shouldn't kill ourselves.
Ah, okay, because just the idea of talking about it, if we do it, it's taboo, so we shouldn't even talk about it because it's taboo. Okay, any other thoughts why we won't talk about it? How about right over there?
I think it's also because if we listen to other people talk about it, then we have to question our own morality and the way we feel about our life, and we just don't want to deal with it because it's too hard.
We don't want to deal with it. It makes us look at our own thoughts and our own morality, as you said, and how we deal with our life. Okay. Anyone else? One more, right back there. Thanks.
Some people may not care whether you live or die, and so they're not going to give you any sympathy.
Wow, okay. Some people may not care if you live or die. You feel that the people that you turn to might not even give you sympathy. Okay. Okay, okay, why not? One more back there, sure, we got a lot of responses.
You don't want to make anybody else uncomfortable talking about it with somebody else because you don't know if they've thought about it.
You don't want to make someone else uncomfortable. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, so there's lots of reasons why we don't talk about it. It's taboo. We don't want to make others uncomfortable. Maybe we fear that people won't be sympathetic. Another thing that I think about when I think about why we won't talk about it, as I read the research on suicide and all the things that people have written about it, I always find that there's this association of suicide, mentally ill, suicide, mentally ill. And none of us want to be seen, at least I think, as mentally ill. You know, there's this correlation of suicide and mental illness. But to that, I would like to pose the question, aren't we all mentally ill? I mean, think about it. We're all physically ill. We all get physically ill at times. We all get colds. We all get headaches. Raise your hand if you've ever had a common cold. Raise your hand if you've ever had a cold. Okay, people are laughing. Sure, we've all had a common cold. Well, I like to think of the topic of human despair and suffering as the common cold of mental illness. We all get it. We all experience symptoms of despair or depression or whatever you want to call it. We all have times in our life when we feel hopeless, when we feel like we can't experience joy, where we don't feel like getting up in the morning, where we just lose interest in things. It's a common human experience. And I would like to advocate that pain, despair, depression is not a disorder, but rather a part of the human condition, something that we all experience as part of the human condition. And what I'd like to do now in talking about that is introduce existential theory. There's a whole, you know, pain and suffering is so common that there is a whole philosophical discipline devoted to studying human pain and suffering, and it's called existentialism. And I consider myself an existential psychotherapist, and what I mean by that is existential psychotherapy posits that as human beings, there are 4 ultimate concerns or givens of existence that we all experience, that we all struggle with as human beings. And our goal as human beings is to try to transcend and come to terms with these 4 givens of existence. What are these 4 givens of existence? Miss Colleen, number 1, death. We all know as human beings that we're going to die. We're all going to die. We're finite. We can't help that. And we don't know when, well, unless we kill ourselves, but we're all going to die. And we have to come to terms with that and accept it. And many of us live in fear of death. Somehow we have to transcend that. The second existential ultimate concern is freedom. In other words, we all are ultimately responsible for the choices in our life. No one else, not your parents, not your friends, not your boyfriends, girlfriends, son, daughter, brother, sister, no one else can make it happen for you. Ultimately, we are responsible for the choices that we make in our lives. And that can be scary, knowing that we have to take that responsibility.